Are you grinding 14 hours a day but still completely struggling to scale? Like, what if the secret to building a multi-million-dollar business isn't just working more, but working completely differently? Well, today, in this explainer, we're deconstructing the really unique daily routine and, frankly, the blunt force tactics of serial entrepreneur Sam Parr. I mean, his companies are currently generating over $10 million a year. And look, he isn't just lucky, right? He operates on a highly specific set of rules. We're going to look super closely at the exact frameworks, those blunt force tactics I mentioned, and the personal mindset he actually uses to achieve and sustain this insane level of success. So here's our roadmap. We'll start with his 6 a.m. foundation, move through how he conquers digital distractions, active planning, 0 to 10 million scaling phase, delegation, and finally, his rather quirky late-night mindset.
All right, part 1, the $10 million morning foundation. Sam relies on a strict, honestly almost militaristic physical routine. He's up between 6 and 6:30 a.m., immediately grabs a black Nespresso just with a splash of whole milk, and boom, he is working out within 30 minutes. We're talking lifting heavy or sprinting 6 days a week. And on his rest days, the guy stretches like an absolute madman. But here's the thing, no matter what, without fail, the morning culminates in a non-negotiable breakfast with his kids. It really sets this powerful, grounded tone for the rest of his day. And this perfectly illustrates his stance on personal accountability. See, Sam uses a 5-year journal, and he actively checks to see exactly how he felt on the same day in previous years. If he spots a recurring complaint, like feeling out of shape, he realizes that just complaining is completely useless. He notes that without building a new system, like actually hiring a coach, literally nothing will change. The action absolutely has to follow the realization.
Moving on to part 2, conquering digital distractions.
So he openly admits to being deeply addicted to his phone. To fight this, he outright refuses to even let it in his bedroom while he sleeps. Early on, he actually locked it in one of those timed KitchenAid containers. But his addiction was so intense one morning, he literally smashed the container to pieces just to get to his device. Yeah, that bad.
So how exactly does he handle it now? Well, to combat toxic comparisons on platforms like Twitter, which he actually calls out as a very toxic personal trait of his own, he relies on a physical and digital tool called Brick. It essentially just turns off the distracting apps so he doesn't sit there comparing his behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel. He completely turns the noise off so he can just focus on his one main thing. Okay, part 3, active planning and time bounding. He manages his workload through a very strict 3-step workflow. First up is active planning. He writes down specific tasks, like, say, coming up with 3 new podcast ideas. Second, and honestly this is the magic step, he time bounds them. They go immediately onto his calendar. Finally, execution. He just accepts the hard truth that true productivity means focusing on and actually completing just 1 or 2 major tasks a day. That's it. But what tasks should you actually pick to do? When picking his projects, he relies on what he phonetically calls the Ikigai framework, which is a reference to the Japanese concept of Ikigai. Basically, he looks for the exact intersection between what the world wants, what people will actually pay for, what he has a proven track record in, and what he just loves doing. If a project hits all 4 of those, bam, it goes straight on the calendar.
Which brings us to part 4, scaling from 0 to 10 million. Look, to get a business from 0 to $10 million, there is no magic wand. He uses what he calls a zebra calendar. It is a ceaseless back-to-back schedule. We're talking a 15-minute customer meeting, a 5-minute break, another 15-minute meeting, another 5-minute break. He writes the copy, he designs the website, he takes all the calls. It is pure, unadulterated brute force, entirely designed to push the company forward. And he justifies this kind of ceaseless action by pointing to a pretty famous study on college students making pottery. Basically, one class aimed to make massive quantities of pots, while the other aimed for just one perfect pot. Turns out, the students who aimed for massive quantity actually produced vastly better final work, and they were happier. Meanwhile, the ones paralyzed by perfectionism ended up with lower quality stuff and were just miserable. Volume in action beat overthinking every single time. Let's look at part 5, delegation and the sandbox. So once the business actually crosses that $5 to $10 million mark, his entire strategy completely flips. He shifts from saying, "What's next, go," and doing all the design and copy himself, to delegating completely. In fact, he delegates so much that he kind of doesn't know what to do with his hands. So he creates a sandbox to play in, these little side projects to tinker with, so he absolutely does not mess with the main, compounding engine of the business. But all that excess energy has to go somewhere, right? To decompress after recording, he literally wanders around his office hunting for employee problems. He'll just walk right up, ask what's wrong, and intensely try to solve it right there on the spot. It actually became such a prominent, almost overwhelming habit that they had to install frosted glass on the office windows because the employees found it a little bit creepy how he'd just peer in looking for things to fix.
Finally, Part 6, Evenings, Quirks, and Mindset. His evenings are surprisingly grounded and honestly deeply human. He gets home between 5:30 and 6 p.m., they order sushi or cook, listen to some music, and then he puts his daughter to sleep. But then, the quirks come out. Around 8:30, he's straight on eBay hunting for cool treasures. And while eBay is loading, he's actively using Claude AI, just asking it deep life questions like a digital therapist.
Right before bed, he doesn't just read randomly. He engages in what he calls reading semesters. From 10 to 10:45 p.m., he'll consume 5 to 10 books at a time on one single hyper-specific obsession. Currently, it's serial killers. Before that, it was shipwrecks, the Kennedy family, and New York history. Total immersion is how he relaxes.
We also absolutely have to highlight his wonderfully flawed personal logic. Around 10:30 p.m., despite that incredibly intense morning fitness routine we talked about, he frequently sneaks out to the kitchen for an Oreo. Why? Because according to his own personal rules, calories simply do not count if it's after 10 p.m. Obviously not true, but it's a great reminder that even the most disciplined minds have their fun little loopholes.
But beneath the Oreos and the late-night eBay hunting is a core, undeniable philosophy. He genuinely believes that building companies is incredibly hard. Working out is hard. But he argues that passing on contagious enthusiasm to your team and actually enduring that inherent pain is literally the only way to discover greatness. You simply cannot shy away from the hard things if you want those massive rewards.
So to wrap up this explainer, let's quickly review the hard facts. Start with a 30-minute morning sprint, block your apps with Brick, use the Zebra Calendar's 15-minute blocks to force scale, and eventually build a sandbox to protect your main business. Today's ultimate takeaway: action and volume beat overthinking every single time. Now for some data alignment, looking at Sam's rigorous Zebra Calendar, how do your own daily productive hours actually compare? Put your data in the comments below and let's see where your specific bottleneck is. And hey, be sure to drop a comment to get a free breakdown of Sam's entire daily blueprint. See you next time.